Good afternoon. I'm Laureen Garrod. I'm director of the TV division at Reed Media. Welcome to this MIPDoc Mastermind Keynote. We're very honored and delighted to welcome David Lyle, who is CEO of National Geographic Channels. Our dear friend, we're delighted to have him here with us today for this keynote. David will share with us his view on the changing face of documentaries. And I can't think of a person better suited to do this. David Lyle has been involved with factual and unscripted programming for some 25 years in key positions within the industry and across the world. As you all probably know, David Lyle's been at National Geographic for the last 6 months, I think just prior to MIPCOM. And prior to that, president of Fox Look, Fox Reality Channel. Also, he was president of Fremantle Media North America, where he launched American Idol and brought it to great growth and success in 3 seasons. And he was also at Pearson Television and the Nine Network in Australia, where he launched and brought local versions of top formats, including Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So lots and lots of things, many, many accomplishments. David is also a founding member of FRAPA, the, I have to get this right, Format Recognition and Protection Association, where he was chairman for 6 years. And as a founding member of FRAPA, David Lyle has been a great supporter and very instrumental in helping us develop MIP formats. So thank you very much for that, David. And so without waiting any longer, let me welcome David Lyle and Julian Newby, who is the editorial director of our MIP publications and also general editorial director of Boutique Editions, and who will be interviewing David. So please enjoy that. We'll find out many new things here.
Sadly, you'll probably find out all the old things. Thanks, Lyle.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you to everybody who's here, and thank you to David.
Well, and thank you for thanking me.
Thanking you.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it might be useful for David and for everybody to know, just briefly, the breakdown of this audience. So, would you mind just sticking your hand up if you are a producer and a distributor and press?
Oh, I better make sure that I'm well behaved.
You better be polite, yeah. Okay, well, David, thank you for this. We're talking about the changing face of documentary, and you've brought a very high-speed, high-powered little piece of video to perhaps illustrate that. So should we go headlong into that?
Yeah, I probably should just sort of set the scene a tiny bit. That National Geographic channels have been at the forefront of what I like to call unscripted entertainment, of which documentaries pure part of that. But I think there's room in that for factual ent in the British sense as well as factual. I think there's a whole range of things we can do. One of the issues that we have in the United States is that so often it is a commercial television channel. We need to sell commercials. And a lot of the people who are the buyers, there are suppliers of commercial, we hope they're going to buy our time, have not got a strong view of National Geographic Channel. And sometimes they remember their grandparents' coffee table where the magazine used to lie. So we cut a reel to show them that there's a full range. And if there's only one message that I talk about the channel, it's that it has a range of material. And that's what this reel shows. So hit it.
Everybody ready? 3, 2, 1. We're gonna head out.
Let's move it.
This is my story.
Oh, woo, got him!
This is a turtle in my book.
God bless America.
This is a hard case.
This is Dr. Bull.
Oh, me.
This is the final frontier.
This is where you bring it to life.
Unstoppable, droppable, it's like bubble wrap, pop, pop, poppable. You ain't got it, well then you want it. Yes, we got it, yeah, we flown it.
This is what it's about.
I love Nat Geo Wild.
Wow.
And that's it.
Well, you're right. That is not the magazine on your grandmother's coffee table with the yellow band around the edge with society in bold on the front.
Yeah.
Is this a massive radical change then?
No, I don't think it's radical. I've said it's more than an evolution, but it's less bloody than a revolution, which the staff liked a lot.
Yeah.
No, look, I think we're sticking to, if you will, the content values that the channel has always had and that are aligned with the society to a greater or lesser extent. But we're exploring all forms of popular ways to tell our stories, and I guess that's why I was, really thrilled to be here, because over the last 6 months I've really been looking at the area of unscripted entertainment, and I paused as though it was a dirty word. It's not. I mean, if we lose sight of entertainment in what we do, then we lose sight of the audience. Certainly the contemporary commercial television audience in the United States, and I would say in a large part of the rest of the world. They have to be entertained first. They've got to be intrigued. They've got to be, and entertainment is not just, I mean, I've done all sorts of stuff, including what I used to call tits and feathers, which was, singing and dancing, shiny black floors, turn, turn, kick, turn. And so, that is completely, if you will, empty entertainment calories. High on entertainment, not much else. I still think there are ways of telling stories that open people up to the world, that excite, that amaze. There was one clip in there with the person drinking the soda bottle and all the liquid flying in the opposite direction, which was a part of 3 hours that we did called Brain Games. And I think it's being sold here as under another title with brain in it. Because I looked in the magazine and thought, oh, we should buy that. But I realized, sadly, we'd already made it. But it shows that I was genuine for once. There was a really difficult topic. It was pure science. It's one of the most exciting areas of discovery and exploration at the moment is inside the skull. Jonah Lear has got a new book out called Imagine, which is about the neuroscience of creativity, which is fascinating. But so this is an exciting, genuine, fascinating area, but as boring as batshit. Yeah. So how are you going to make this, interesting? And I'm pleased to say that our team worked at it, and when they could have given up, they worked more on it to make it really interactive and fascinating. And I defy any two people to look at it without talking to one another while they're watching the show, because you go, no, no, that's the bigger one. It's got a lot. The premise is largely about how our brain fools us. And you go back to those drawings that you used to see that either was an old lady's face or two candlesticks in black and white, and you kind of looked at them and you couldn't figure out. But it goes to a lot of other spatial areas that that our brain fools us on. And then it goes into other ways that our left and right hemisphere and our emotional brain and our frontal cortex and all those sort of things, how we think. But it didn't just talk about it, it demonstrated with hidden camera, with street magicians, and with physical demonstrations. And so that's an area that we used a different way to tell a story that could have been a traditional 1 hour, lots of high-class graphics, I'm sure, but it still would have had this ponderous voice of God thumping on, and then a couple of scientists sitting beautifully lit and tiny bit of backlighting and stuff. And I just don't think it would have had the involvement. We also, it was a case, again, that I would urge anyone who's in the factual or the factual entertainment business, think from day one what the digital ramifications. We launched that with a huge digital campaign before the show, before we started advertising on air about it, before we started showing promos. So it was actually getting buzz and was true. I mean, people use the term viral when they put things out there. They forget that the important part of viral is that someone else should care enough to send it to a third party, which is often the part that doesn't seem to happen.
You use the terms discovery and exploration just now, which have to be the watchwords of National Geographic.
Well, Discovery might claim that one of them's theirs, but I can see where you're getting.
It's in the back of your head. It must be that you are custodian of this extraordinary brand that has lasted for so long. And
I'm not custodian, and I'm certainly not being evangelical on their behalf, but I'm not screwing it up for them. I'm keeping a range of things. First and foremost, it's a commercial channel. I've got to get audiences, and I've got to get big audiences, and I've got to get returning audiences, and I've got to get wider audiences and younger audience. So I have those demands, and they're front and center, and to me, they're responding to entertainment. However, the subject matter should fit within, or should not be outside the range of something that National Geographic Channel or magazine might be interested in at some stage. Now, the motto of the society is to inspire people to care about the planet. And I think inspire can be part of entertainment. But I think it also means care about the people on the planet, the strange characters, the weird, the wonderful. We run a show called Taboo, which is about weird people in different countries whose lifestyles put them outside the mainstream. So you wouldn't want to have them to a polite dinner party, but they certainly are fascinating.
You have vast experience of formats and reality television. I think we are talking here right now about a very fine line now between what National Geographic has traditionally been known for and what has dominated our screens for the last 10 to 15 years. Has the line shifted? Is the line there? Do you know the line anymore?
I think I do. And usually I find out after I've crossed it. No, that you hear certain howls if you have gone over it. First of all, I mean, the term reality TV is a bucket where people put stuff they don't like. This I know from interviewing the public and finding people who watch 5 or 6. We did numerous focus groups, and you'd get people who passionately watched The Bachelor, Jersey Shore, Housewives of, etc., etc. And they knew each. Frighteningly, they didn't know if they'd seen them online or on television, but they knew the last episode they'd seen. They knew every nuance. And when you'd finish discussing that with them, you'd say, And so what do you think of reality TV? They go, oh, that's crap, that's shit, that's manipulated, false, cheesy, etc. So the shows they liked were the shows they liked. And when they switched to the next show, it was just as likely to be sport or drama. Yeah. And so they weren't predisposed to watch what the public or what the trade might call reality TV. And the shows they didn't like, they bunched into that area. So really, I think, and some people make the distinction reality TV has to have competition in it, which is sort of one definition. I think at its broadest, reality TV is really a production method rather than a subject matter. Yeah. I can admire mightily the production of Jersey Shore. I think that's a really well-produced show, and it's full of shit. The characters are they're amusing, I suppose, in a sort of, there's no there. Yeah. I mean, unless you are interested in tanning, or to see, to some extent, that life goes ever on, that people get drunk, get laid, get drunk, get remorseful, get laid. It's...
I guess you're talking about what you're talking about is the new soaps here, really.
Well, the content of those are soaps, but I would point out that often some of the storytelling is really extraordinary. That they will talk to someone who's going to, or two protagonists before an event. Oh, I'm going in there and I'm going to tell her that, I've had enough. You will then see the event unfurling. We will then have either of the protagonists saying, oh, I probably went too far when I told her that she was a slapper. God, and she took it so badly. And then she'll say, oh, yes, he's a pig of a guy. We'll see a bit more of the scene. We may even go back to another part of what the guy was going to do before he got there. So this is like Memento. This is unbelievable. This is 3 parts of fractured time being told in parallel to people who supposedly we should piss on because they're idiots. But they're fairly sophisticated, I might add, in being able to follow a drama. Well, I think in some respects you've got to look at that and go, wow. Then you go on how much was manipulated, how much was altered, how much was reshot, etc. And some of those questions probably interest us more, because one of the sort of compacts that I have with the society is that, we have a rigorous sort of standards and practices team that do more than standards and practices at other channels, because they're fact checkers. And so we really, if we say something is something, we need to have 3 sources, don't I know it?
Well, that's an important point, because the types of programming you were talking about, I think we'll stop giving them a too hard a time. But if you remember the end of The Hills, when they panned back and they proved that it was all fake and it was all a set. So they kind of defined it in that way. And you were leading me on to that. You need to make sure that there is a distinction between this sort of fake reality and
well, I mean, some of those really, the Essex and the Hills and so forth, they are honest in saying that this is a staged, if not scripted, event. And then you do have those discussions. Can something ever be reshot? Does that break the golden rule of documentary making? I go back to the golden, Nanook of the North. That was totally reshot and restaged and redone. So I'm not as concerned about that. What we, in my simple way, I try and boil it down to authenticity and balance. I like to think that the people that might feature in one of our shows, and we've got one, I mean, there's wicked Tuna here if we want to have a look at that, but the guys in this were doing that before the cameras turned up. Yeah. They've been doing that on and off for 20 years, but it's about an issue that's at the heart of what the society is concerned about, the welfare of the ocean. These guys are fishermen. They're killing and catching and selling bluefin tuna, but they are doing it with rod and reel. And as part of the sort of campaign around this whole show, we then have really vigorous sort of website and PSAs that look at the entire tuna, bluefin tuna species and the fishing of it and what this means. So in a strange way, we backed into an environmental message from an odd spot, but I hope it goes to air on Sunday.
Well, let's
I
have
hope
a look.
it rates.
Should we have a look at it?
Yeah.
I think it's the third reel.
Yeah, it's called Wicked Tuna. Wicked is a Boston parlance meaning extremely good.
So you've got a reel there, called the third reel? Is
The third reel, Wicked Tuna.
Wicked Tuna.
And it's 45 seconds, because I know sometimes you wonder, how long will this go on?
Gloucester has a long history as a fishing community.
It's been a fishery since the early 1800s. I'm actually a third-generation fisherman, and I've been doing it since I was 8 years old.
It's where it all started, just something I love to do.
Bluefin tuna fishing is the absolute challenge.
It's the most powerful fish in the ocean.
It's the most unbelievable battle you could ever have. You go until you just can't go anymore.
You gotta catch them. You gotta sleep out there till you catch them.
I got 10 weeks to make a year's salary. Nobody's getting in my way.
There's money out there if you can reel it in.
I like to fight.
I like to gamble.
And I love the payoff.
Wicked Tuna, a new series, premieres Sunday, April 1st at 10 on the National Geographic Channel.
The important thing there, that they've been doing that for 20 years before the cameras started rolling.
And believe me, if there aren't a lot of second takes there either, because when they're trying to reel in a fish that's worth 10 to 15 grand, there's no second takes, and if the cameraman gets in the way, he's over the side. They're unabashed about it. They have 10 weeks to make, because the season is restricted because of the numbers of tuna that have gone down. And this was a sort of a bold thing for the society to do, because that we've run any number of old school documentaries about and the plight of the bluefin tuna, but we get 3 men and a dog watching them. And so this was a way to ride a different style of storytelling with large, loud characters, and then to hope that you get a large enough audience that if 20% of that audience want to know more about the plight of the tuna, you've actually had a net gain.
Would you say you've given quite a stark message to the 60 to 70% of producers in this room?
Maybe about what they think of National Geographic Channel. We're not, we're looking for a range of unscripted entertainment, and I believe that we need characters, we need insight to fascinating worlds. We have changed from 70% or 75% one-off docs, I guess you would call them, to 75% series like that Wicked Tuna, which is 10 eps. However, I mean, I still, that 25% of one-offs, I want to be super special, and I want to get those one-offs wherever they come from, and well, I'll deny ever saying it, at whatever it costs. They need to be wonderful. They need to have terrific access. They need to do the impossible. Oh no, you can't do that. They need to do it. So those, and we're up for co-productions. We love worldwide commissions, but I think in the British sense, you would say we're up for it.
Would you say the bar has been raised on the one-off side, given the success of the headliners like Michael Moore and Morgan Spurlock, who's actually here this week, Alex Gibney, producing material that people actually go to the movie, pay to go and see? Yes, and I think we may be a bit late to the realization that a plethora of so what one-offs just won't cut it with an audience. It just, it's commercial television. You have to get a sustainable commercial audience. And
The specials will, yes, people go to the movies to see those, you know, that they will pay good money. And again, that's sort of usually in those feature docs, they take a controversial issue and then lift the lid on it. And we will do that. And again, have done that. And I mean, when I just arrived, we had the oldest fashion doc you could hope to see. It was George Bush's memories of 9/11. And he was sitting there, shot against blacks, bit of B-roll, not a lot, and that was it. And it did gangbusters. It did huge business because the access was fantastic. And everyone that, you know, started off thinking he was an idiot and, you know, finished thinking he was an idiot, and everyone who thought he was wonderful finished off thinking he was wonderful again. So it was a perfect documentary in that regard, that it reinforced everyone's prejudices. But it was really stunningly old-fashioned and stunningly successful. So, you know, I'm not saying that I've got a sort of a ban on one type. I'm just saying let's open the doors to many types, to look at formats, to look at to look at a whole range of different ways of we're doing a show that we will devote with Jane Root and Nautopia, the 80s, the decade that made us, and we're going to do that across a week. We'll just devote a week to it, and so it'll be a special. But it will be a special that will have many parts. And then from that we'll launch, and we'll spend a lot of money publicizing it, so we'll launch some other series off the back of that. And again, that's a different style for us. It's a different area. There were all sorts of taboos when aside from the program taboo, when I got there. One of them was music doesn't rate and medicine doesn't rate. So we'll see if they're true or not. I don't have a lot of medicine down, you know, coming down the path. I suppose the brain, in a way, is sort of like medicine, but yeah.
But yeah, and you're also getting big players coming into the business. Martin Scorsese, but music doesn't play well. His George Harrison has gone, you know, all over the place. The Rolling Stones and so on. So it's kind of how you. It's obviously it's how you treat it, isn't it?
And how you promote it. I mean, that's the other reason. I hate sounding like, the commercial, some commercial whore. But we have to, pay a certain amount of money to publicize the programs to cut through in the United States. And so it better be worth it. I mean, really, you can't, a one-off sort of, that's quite nice, doc. It just won't get publicized. So if I'm going to publicize something large, it needs to be hugely large. And it helps if I can, when I say publicize, I should be saying market, meaning pay for marketing. I mean, it helps if it has some inbuilt free publicity, as the Michael Moores and the Spurlocks do. They hit a controversial issue and then, ride it, as it were.
But I mean, Michael Moore was very lucky in the sense he had Bush and 9/11, and 2 or 3 or 4 movies rode off the back of that period. So he was very responsive to current events and current affairs. Are you ever in that position that you can say, right, well, this is going on right now, so we need a load of stuff about this?
We are, and we do, and we've had success, and we'll continue with a strand of, it's user-generated video, if you like, or home video. And, that used to mean, camcorders at kids' birthday parties. Now it just means hold up your phone. We ran a very successful Concordia cruise thing, which just ran footage of the passengers from around the world. And often their own audio. Likewise, after the Japanese tsunami, we ran a lot of those. And some of them had moments on the news, and it's counterintuitive, because we're all taught edit, murder your babies, edit. But when you let those things run long, they're quite fascinating. And there's this sort of, you can hear in Japanese, and you don't understand the language, but by Christ, you understand the tone. Sort of like, oh, that's sort of, oh, look at that. And then it's like, oh, I think I better get to higher ground.
Yes.
And so we've done that, and we've got some stuff ready to go in that vein. We feel it is one of the areas, especially if they're natural events. I was going to say natural disasters, and I suppose there is an element of that. But big natural events, I think, is something that National Geographic should get to air with quickly.
So what should people here know about what you look for, how you schedule?
They should know that I've got a list of the names of people at National Geographic that you should harass rather than me. That they certainly should know. But look, we're interested in a broad range of stuff. We've had a bit of success over the last 6 months of when people come into pitches saying, okay, what else have you got that you haven't pitched us that you think's right for someone else? They go, oh, well, oh no, what about this one? And we find that kind of fascinating because you know, people can be sort of hung up on an image of the channel that comes from their past. We want to try different things.
What about rights negotiation? Is that a changing picture in this world of the changing documentary?
Yes, it's always changing. And one of the phrases that has been banned since I arrived is, we don't do that. Right. We now consider doing anything. Oh no, I was misquoted with that a little while ago. In terms of our negotiations, we look at all aspects. By which I mean agents were banned at the channel. We didn't do development deals, and there are a whole bunch of things we didn't do. We still like to buy rights for the world. We've got many international channels. The channels sometimes buy for the world independently, and sometimes we buy in the US and then it goes out to the world. So there are different ways. We co-produce with various people that will grab 1 or 2 territories and then we'll deal for others. We look at windows and windowing. And I think one of the things that I'm looking at, I suppose I should have spoken to business affairs before I said it, is possibly the material reverting back to the producer after a long run, because having been a producer and having distributed for producers, I know that it helps the value of their companies if they have some stuff on the shelf. And hence, you know, after, you know, a pretty long cycle, I would say, you know, like 8 or 10 years when it's been run, rather than it sit in Washington, it may as well sit back with the originator of the material, and that would be something we'd consider.
Is the age of the author, the auteur, over, if I put together everything that you've said, given that a lot of the documentary tradition was the lone person with a view or with a passion, and they make that movie whatever, even whether they knew who the audience initially was or not. I mean, the woman up on the screen who borrowed £10 from all her friends, you know, it was a passion.
Yeah, but that's going to be a commercial venture, if you ask me. No, I love passion. I love polemics. You know, I think that's terrific. What I would hate is if someone's passion was about Moroccan campfires, or possibly nose music from the Andes. You know, I can recognize their passion. I doubt I'll find an audience that is as kind.
Someone's clothing would have to catch fire on the Moroccan campfire, and then maybe...
No, look, we were a bit guilty of it ourselves at the channel. We loved sending, you know, the National Geographic organization is the largest funder in the United States, and, you know, that's a large place, is the largest funder of field science in the United States. So they've got all these people running off around the place doing incredible stuff. And we used to send crews with them every so often who would, go through hell and, almost die. We've got one about 2 guys who wanted to record every version of the bird of paradise. And the bird of paradise live in the worst parts of the world, parts of Australia and New Guinea and some other islands. And these people went through hell, multiple malaria and everything. And we've ended up with a really nice scientific study of birds. And the crew didn't actually record the journey or the passion or the tears or the failure or the losing of the equipment or the almost losing of their life. They've recorded the birds. I love people's passion.
Well, people's passion, we have 10 minutes, just under 10 minutes to hear from anybody on the floor. If you have a question for David. Anybody in the audience?
Practical, theoretical.
Pitch him.
What the line is between reality and traditional? No? Oh, yes?
My name is Henrik Ekman. I work as a buyer for Swedish television. We bought lots of programs, we still do, from National Geographic. We used to buy them from National Geographic International, now it will be from National Geographic Channel. What will be the consequences for us now that National Geographic International has become National Geographic Channel?
I don't think you should see huge consequences from the distribution organization. The best of the people who were with those 2 organizations that have merged are still there. What I guess you need to know is what will be the consequences with the sort of programming that we're doing. Less singles and more series, but I think the singles should be, yes, you don't need that. I can talk to you, yeah. But the singles, I hope, will be bigger than Ben-Hur. I think should be, oh my God. And as we enter into different relationships with people and talk about the creative use of windows, the fact that the distribution is closer to the channels means that we can be commercial with partners in finding the right use of different windows.
But there is a real conflict of interest between the channel's interest of exclusivity to really promote the channel and our wish to show the programs as soon as possible. The channel wants to hold back as long as possible, and we want to show it as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's true. Isn't life complex? But look, there are some people that we can't do a worldwide deal with, and so they will actually choose our distribution arm to distribute to you, and we might only have it in, say, English language world, and they distribute to you, and you get it first up or something. Other times, it's different show by show.
But my question was really, are we facing a change? Will there be a change?
No, I don't believe so. But he would say that, wouldn't he?
There's a question over here.
David, you've emphasised the commercial imperative. You've emphasised the commercial imperative under which you have to work. Speaking as a cry for the old hunter-gatherer form of documentary makers, would you go along with the notion that maybe the public broadcasters, the national broadcasters, are dropping the ball on this? That they are not subject to a commercial imperative, but they are wanting to pinch your market?
Well, public broadcasters always, if we talked about complexity before, public broadcasters are always torn between being for the public good and then rating like stink. They want to rate because then they're relevant and not elitist, but at the same time, if the shows don't rate, they say it was for the public good. So, I think the world of public broadcasters they're squeezed a lot. But, I still think even for public broadcasters, you know, there are ways of making great documentaries, but still have to have that entertainment aspect in there. I don't think it's an either or. Perhaps I'm Pollyanna, but I don't.
We have a question over here.
Hey David, with something like Wicked Tuna, with something like Wicked Tuna, which you know is exciting, how hard do you, or how vigorously do you guys test that before you go ahead and commission it? And then you sounded like a little bit nervous about it going to air this Sunday. What sort of feedback has the Nat Geo had, you know, so far, just on the fact that on the type of program that it is?
We do focus groups after we've shot it, which is, you know, can be a tiny bit depressing. In that case, it wasn't. But to help fine-tune it, to see if we're missing something and to see if we're not telling the story clearly enough, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe to, you know, edit so someone comes up and someone, you know, comes forward in the mix, as it were. And so that's the extent of that. What sort of feedback do you hope? You hope to get a lot of buzz online. We're in a situation now that we're really starting to market it like tonight in the States, as close as possible to air date. So, you know, you'll see me on Monday, Tuesday. You'll know how it did just by the way I'm walking down the Croisette. Or, you know, if I don't have a hat and, you know, fake nose and moustache.
A question.
In terms of thinking about programs for National Geographic Channel, how do you from a brand point of view, how do you distinguish National Geographic Channel from Discovery Channel?
Well, outward-facing brand, I guess brand normally means to the public. I would like to think that our programs are authentic and that we prize that authenticity. I would like to think that our programs will show a broader range of subject matter than maybe other places. But there's a large overlap too. I'm not, you know, pretending, you know, that there's not. There's a large overlap with where history is now. There's a large overlap where A&E is. Sometimes there's an overlap, you know, with Bravo, for God's sake, and sometimes, you know, PBS or something. So, but certainly at the moment, I think I'd love to feel that we're also slightly more risk-taking and would love to think of something that almost doesn't make sense.
We have a couple of minutes, and I know there's a question at the end there. Michelle.
David Lyle, you are recognized as a format expert, and you've been a format expert for a long time, and now you sound very much like a documentary expert. What made you, how much did the format business
You're asking
help?
how much I'm paid.
How much did it help you become a documentary expert?
That's a very good question, Michelle. Thank you for asking it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to hijack this session. Julian, it's been absolutely fascinating. This is a MIP Formats MIPDoc hold-up. We have crossed the Croisette to present Mr. Lyle with an award. Every year, in association with MIP Formats, we present the C21 Frapper Format Awards. It goes to the great and the good of formats, and if anybody has spanned the generations, it is Mr. David Lyle. So we are not going to keep him long. We are going to represent this in front of his peers tomorrow at MIP Formats, where he'll have had chance to gather his thoughts. He normally spends hours in a darkened room discussing who the recipient of this award should be. This year we have spent months bamboozling him, and it has not been easy. So we're going to not ask him to say anything now. We are going to whisk him away for dinner. On behalf of MIP Formats, Frapper, C21, would you please put your hands together for a fantastic session and the Gold Award winner of 2012, Mr. David Lyle.
Legit at last. Legit at last. Come on. Goodness gracious. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Oh, well, thank you. Oh. Sorry. You see how I've lowered the tone already?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well,
oh, sorry. Thank you. Oh, well, yes, we'll hug. Yes. I'm sorry. I thought I was having a very serious conversation.
Thanks for the
thank you. Thank you.
Okay, into the camera.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, folks.
Oh, thank you. I did think you were going to ask about my salary. So I think that's the end of it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.